When we began to look at Jesus' teaching called the Sermon on the Mount, I said from the very beginning that we're going on a journey. In order for us to begin to live the ways of Jesus, we need to know and be challenged and encouraged by the words of Jesus. And I tried to prepare us on the front end that when we dive into this, and we're going to be going for quite a while, that we're likely going to have a collision of values. That at points, while we unpack the teaching, we're going to have to confront some challenging questions. Things like, when what I want and think and believe and hope for is different than what Jesus says, am I going to be willing to let go of that and grab a hold of Jesus and what he says leads to a better life, even if I don't understand or agree? The other aspect of going on a journey like we are is that by starting at the beginning and working our way straight through, we're forced to deal with some things that are difficult. Sometimes journeys take us to places we might not normally choose to go on our own. What we're going to look at today is my least favorite thing so far. What we've been learning is that the kingdom of Jesus is an upside down kingdom. The values and even the people who are part of it are entirely different than what people experienced in the world around them. Here's the way it reads. Matthew chapter 5, when he saw the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. And then he began to teach them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the humble, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God." And here's what we're going to look at today. "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs." You're blessed when they insult you and persecute you and falsely say every kind of evil against you because of me. Be glad and rejoice, because your reward is great in heaven. For this is how they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Now, if you ask me, that sounds nothing like the good life, but actually the pretty terrible life. So let's make sure we understand what Jesus wants to say. You are blessed. He's began that way every week. You're blessed. You have the favor of God on you and are living the good life. He adds this week, when you're persecuted, face insults, and are falsely slandered. But notice the two mentions of the word because. Because of righteousness and because of me, he says, Jesus. And he attaches a double reward of heaven. Now, I think Jesus is likely preparing people for what might be ahead of them if they were to walk down the hillside and adopt this radical new way of upside down living, right? This approach to living with God and people. You should prepare for resistance, even persecution. Persecution comes in different forms, but it's always tied to a person's convictions. In this case, choosing to follow Jesus. Let me give you a definition that I've formulated. Persecution is opposition experienced because of one's identification with Jesus. That includes ridicule, ostracism, imprisonment, torture, and execution. Persecution is what happens when there's a clash of two irreconcilable value systems, a clash between righteousness and the kingdom of Jesus and the system of the world. One of the things everyone knew who was there would be that they might have a decision to make between Jesus over against the cost of going against the Roman government. I mean, just think about it. With a Roman Empire spread out across nations, they needed a way to pull everything together. Everyone paying the same taxes and building the same empire. Well, you need a common religion. So they said, why don't we just start worshiping the emperor? The emperor became godlike, and they had statues, and you went to worship and you made your sacrifice, and they all professed this creed: Caesar is Lord. Now, you might be familiar with a conversation that Jesus had with his disciples when he asked this question: Who do people say that I am? And they gave a lot of responses. You're a prophet, you're all kinds of things. And then he said, well, who do you say I am? And Peter jumps in and says, well, you're the Christ, you're the Son of the living God. And for there comes the early Christian creed, Jesus is Lord. Now, those are fighting words. The Caesars didn't like it. They tried to put an end to it, which is why Jesus ends the conversation with a challenge and some encouragement. He says, you're going to have to deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. But nothing can ever stand against my church. When you choose to hold on to what is good, and someone in the room doesn't like the good, how does that make them feel? Well, not good. Sometimes our very presence is an indictment in a way. Whenever we're threatened or indicted, we usually punch first. This is where persecution comes from. Now let's get practical. For many of us, what you might be experiencing is relational or what I might call cultural opposition. Some of you have heard it from your family because they don't understand what you've found. They question you, ridicule you, joke about you. They think you've joined a cult. Some of us at work are left out because we choose not to participate in the conversation in the break room because it's sexist or racist or just straight gossip. People make jokes about you, and if it gets severe, you might be passed over for promotions. It's the same in school, in sports leagues, and your cul-de-sac. I've lived in one before with 9 other neighbors, and once they found out I was a pastor, they didn't even care to really get to know me. I was excluded from Monday night football and cookouts just because of my association with Jesus. If you value things that are true and right and stand up for Jesus, you should expect to be mistreated and potentially persecuted. While you may be experiencing some pushback in your life, and I would never make light of that, our brothers and sisters in the church around the world are experiencing what I would classify as very high and extreme levels of persecution. Just consider some of these very conservative numbers, that every day 13 Christians worldwide are killed because of their faith. Every day 12 churches or Christian buildings are attacked. Every day 12 Christians are unjustly arrested or imprisoned, and another 5 are abducted. Here are some of the countries around the world that are the most persecuted: North Korea, Afghanistan, Somalia, Pakistan. 9 out of 10 Christians who are actually killed for their faith are living in Africa. The country of Nigeria actually ranks number 1 for Christians who are killed related to faith. Throw in a global pandemic, and there's been an increase in persecution because people who needed help were denied the help simply because of their identification with Jesus. It's estimated that some 340 million people are living in countries that experience high levels of persecution. What's happening to Christians around the world should alarm and even outrage everyone because it's first and foremost a human rights issue. But it should drive the followers of Jesus to prayer because these are brothers and sisters in the family of God. Jesus wants to make sure we're not surprised by persecution in our life. He said, it's happened to people before you, it happened to me, it happened to my disciples, and it will happen to you. But you can endure it. So stand up, live holy, be Christ-like, be distinctive, get grounded in God's word and his promises, and let's agree that opposition will not drive us away from Jesus, but opposition will drive us to Jesus.